All right, let's get started. This is being recorded, by the way, and thank you all for joining. Some of you we did meet yesterday at the mastering get together in Sydney, but I'm sure we'll catch up with everyone else soon. Welcome again. Thanks for joining. We are going to spend an hour today with Rizing and SAP talking about some of the new things that are happening in IAM, and I'll hand it over to John now to kick us off. Thanks, John.
Fantastic. Thank you, Martin. And yeah, great to be here. For those who kind of keep an eye on our global events and webinars, you might go, hold it, didn't we have a what's new in intelligent asset management last week? And the answer is yes, absolutely we did. And in fact, the recording for that is available up on the wiki site. The plan for this session is not to repeat everything that was in that session. It ran for about 2 hours. Fantastic content, and I would encourage you to dig into the detail there and to listen to that recording. But really, what we wanted to do with this session was, I guess, focus on some of the key highlights and also bring together a few more people to provide a little bit more of a local perspective, both from Australia and New Zealand and an APJ perspective. So joined today, of course, by Martin, but also by my colleagues Simon and Tim from SAP and Adit from Rizing as well. So we're going to touch on some of the elements that were discussed last week, and we're going to have a bit of a conversation around well, what does that mean? What's important? We obviously want you to be part of that conversation. We'd encourage you to, if you have questions, please pop them in the chat. Tim's offered to kind of keep an eye on that and answer what we can as we go. And then hopefully we'll have some time at the end that we can also address some of the questions as we go. So with that, let's get into it. We're going to cover kind of 4 main areas today. So we'll cover the SAP Asset Intelligence Network. We're going to cover the mobile asset manager solution. We're going to cover field service management, and we're going to cover under the banner of asset performance management, predictive asset insights, and asset strategy and performance management. So these were the areas that were covered in the session last week as well. So let's kick off with the Asset Intelligence Network. And there was a number of kind of new things that were released in the last couple of releases of the Asset Intelligence Network. Integration clearly featuring pretty highly on the focus areas here for SAP. So we saw new integration with Fieldglass around statement of work and worker details. We saw improved integration with the spatial cloud services, so bringing our map capabilities into our cloud solutions like the Asset Intelligence Network as well. We also saw improved integration back into the core ERP, so both ECC and S/4HANA, and so additional information that's not just in the asset management space, but actually in the procurement space. And you can kind of see where we're heading here, that actually we're creating more and more capability around core work orders and around notifications in terms of how you can share that information, grant privileges to others and let them update, and then use that information then to drive follow-on processes, ultimately, in Ariba or in Fieldglass or in the logistics business network. So, a number of kind of foundational elements there in terms of integration that have been released in the Asset Intelligence Network. And of course, the vision here, is around making it much simpler for everyone to engage with SAP's network solutions, not just the Asset Intelligence Network, but all of our network solutions. So, harmonizing, bringing those together, and creating end-to-end, collaboration and insight across the process, so that you can, initiate a work order, trigger your procurement, track the delivery of those materials and those spare parts, negotiate with your suppliers around the statement of work, execute the work, and then, of course, manage invoicing and payment, all within a consistent networked process. So, a pretty exciting sort of roadmap. And I guess, it might bring, Adir into the conversation here. I mean, this idea of a unified network, right? Bringing together, Ariba, bringing together the logistics business network, bringing together the asset intelligence network. I mean, this is pretty exciting. I mean, in your view, I mean, what are the benefits really here of bringing these different networks together?
Yeah, so thanks for that. So coming back to your point before around field glass integration is now already available. Ariba and Logistic Business Network will come sometimes next year based on roadmap. If you look at the field glass integrations, it allows the maintainer to get from your service provider the contract that you have in field glass, and also that means you have a process where you can integrate from order sharing to the onboard and offboard of your contractors seamlessly within the two networks. Apart from that, and the Ariba integration will comes in to support the spare parts request capability that comes in again planned in 2022, which means AIN and Ariba can share the parts catalog in the future. One of the features that was discussed as well about digital twin handover through procurement. That's not to support the work process, but that's to support the old AIM purpose to have a digital twinning mechanism between what you have in the networks and on your on-prem system. Logistic business network bring that extra capabilities of transparency, like what you have currently when you order stuff from Australia Post or others. It's a tracking mechanism where you know where your spare parts down to the minute details in terms of where they're at in the global network. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a good point actually. That integration between the asset network and the Ariba network, right? You might actually start the process by initiating procurement for an asset.
Yeah.
And then of course you want to deliver that asset information, so you want to get all the information about the asset. And then of course, as you go into operate and maintain, then you may then take that asset information that has information around spare parts and then re-trigger procurement again. So it's not necessarily just from one network to the other, but actually it becomes a loop, right, that you go around.
And on the roadmap, it says function and location creations can happen through AIN next year as well. So all of that can ties together and becomes like a network. Yeah.
Yeah. No, fantastic. Simon, one of the other areas that that's been a real big focus through 2021, right? And we saw the first release of this back in February, and the functionality has been enhanced over the course of the year. It's around this idea of the collaborative work order, so bringing together the operators and the service providers. I mean, what are you seeing in terms of the interest from our customers around this process and some of the challenges, I guess, in doing this today?
Yeah, look, and so I think this is quite, I think it's almost like this is like the critical issue for actually getting value out of collaborative maintenance. So the idea that we could share asset data is like wonderful because everyone hates it, but pretty hard to build a business case to make things better based upon having better master data. So that generally doesn't fly, but now actually providing real business benefit. So, I mean, as we all know in this space, the moment you involve a contractor and how do you share information in a proper structured way, in a systematic way, and is difficult. Often is, we see, if it's a lot of email, phone calls, all that sort of stuff. So it's hard to understand what's going on. But even we've got, I think we're lucky to see customers out on both sides, people who have lots of assets and get service providers to look after them, and service providers who provide that service. Typically we're doing point-to-point integrations, so one service provider is working for 3 or 4 different asset owners, shall we say. They've got 3 or 4 different integrations. So I think there's a real opportunity here to work in a much better way between everyone that's on the system, and it's I think a real game changer for being able to actually pass the right level of information across between people who care about the things that upon which the work is being done.
Yeah, I think that's been one of the big challenges, right? That, I mean, you might put this process in place, with a point-to-point integration for some of your biggest service providers, but being able to scale that down to some of the many smaller contractors and subcontractors that may be being involved has always been a challenge, right? And so having a more flexible sort of platform that yes, I can integrate to a large service provider's ERP system, or actually I can just give direct access to a small subcontractor and they can just update the information directly. Having those different options, I think, really helps. And I mean, I guess there's still work to do in this space. There's still plenty more. You can see on the right hand side, there's still plans around the full work order execution process, and we'll see that progressively delivered over the next couple of releases.
Yeah, and I think probably just before you move on, the other key point is the fact that typically procurement think they should be involved because you're buying some services, but the information they need and the way they need to do it is not the way we need to look after and manage the job. Yeah, but unfortunately for the maintenance people, it's like we've got to deal with that stuff. So I think that integration into Fieldglass just killing a few birds with one stone there. So I think it's going to be wonderful when it's fully in place.
Yeah, fantastic. All right. Well, with that, Martin, I might invite you to talk to us through Asset Manager and some of the updates there.
Yeah, thanks, John. Thanks, Simon. Good content so far. So hopefully we can keep that up as we go through Asset Manager and some of the things that are new now, and this concept around personas and inventory management persona. This is the first one, or one of the early ones, and we'll actually talk about the roadmap and a little bit about other personas and how that's going to go forward. But introduction of this new inventory management persona, and really this is a new user interface for inventory and for an inventory clerk. So it does all of those inbound delivery documents, the receipts, the orders, and the outbound documents, and it's not for the complex WM capability or EWM, but it's for the IM transaction. So it's the first one in to hopefully get a better look and feel for that inventory clerk type of person. The other thing it has in there as well is that allows you to have some on-demand fetch capability to pull documentation from the back end as well. So that's the first one. The second one around multi-user support. So again, this has been a long-term request for a lot of customers, and I give you a specific example where if you have different shifts and they share the same device. So normally previously they would have had to basically log down, shut down the device, restart it back up, log in and then go through that whole process. So now this gives the ability to store multiple user information locally on the device. So as a transfer over at the end of shift or shared devices, it makes it much more quicker or easy for the next person to log in and then start to utilize the system. So that's a really good add. EAM checklists, again, we'll talk a bit about this as well. EAM checklists, good. It's important to note though that this is in 2110 release, but it's also in the S4HANA backend. You need to have 2021 release as well. So for you to utilize checklists, but we'll talk about checklists and we'll have some questions about that and ASPM as well for checklists. So that's new and that's come along. Some of the other functional improvements here are follow-on maintenance requests. So so you can, as you go through and close out work, you can then on your mobile device do some of that follow-on work as well. Phase model is an interesting one. There's a new approach that's really born out of public cloud offering of of EAM capability, and first and foremost, it gets put in the public cloud, and then it gets pushed to your on-prem system, and this now allows that capability on Asset Manager with your on-prem system. So what that is 9 various phases. So like you have today with statuses, there's another approach, which is the 9-phase model as well. So that's now come along. And then I guess the other one here I've mentioned from what's new is around the UX improvements. And one of the interesting ones that I found new is around the swiping process. So you can swipe right, if there's a flag, or taking, if you wanted to delete something, and swipe left if you wanted to create a notification. So it's much more interactive on your device, that you can, some of the tools and capabilities that you use on some other applications. So that's coming in, or that's now available in 2110. So as you can see, that's the stuff that's new. But talking a little bit about the vision and roadmap, I'll bring Tim in to the conversation now, because there's some real interesting things here, I think, which are on the right, that we want to sort of discuss a bit more. And the first one's around the creation of assets and function locations from a template. This also allows you from an equipment number generation and installation out in the field. So I guess, Tim, did you want to touch on that capability and sort of really focus on, what are the business processes this is trying to resolve?
Yeah, thanks, Martin. Afternoon, everyone. So this is a planned item, by the way. So this is planned to be released in the Q2 2022, because we have 6 monthly releases of this product. So, currently you've got your master data stored in your backend SAP system, and then your technicians interact with that data and raise work orders off it. So what's changing with this planned update is that we're now empowering those field workers to actually create master data on their device as well. So, creating a functional location, creating an equipment out in the field. So, the use cases kind of differ per industry, but in general, anywhere that you might find a new asset in the field, this will be useful for. So, if you're in underground utilities, for instance, you're doing something in water and gas, and you're digging something up, and you find that a valve hasn't been documented because the network's old and it's on paper, etc. You could, create a new equipment that represents that valve directly on the device as well. The big disclaimer, I guess, around all of this is that, your company, you might have restrictions around this. So we obviously put the ability to have some controls in place so that, you might, disable it or only provide certain users access to create those assets. So, in general, next update, creation of master data on the device for you, Martin.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. And it's important there as well. I just saw a question from Vicky, which prompted me as well, is around security, right? And the pass through of security from the back end also. So so people out in the field can't magically start using this if they don't have the right security access in the back end as well. So the second one, which we talked about what's new in the current release, or in release 2110, is around the inventory management persona, and this concept around personas. Did you want to give us a bit of an understanding of where that's heading, and what's the strategy from an SAP perspective?
Yeah, no problem. So this is kind of exciting for us around the persona-driven approach. So it's starting in the 2110 release, which is coming out this week or the next. So you'll be able to actually download the standard demo app from the Apple or Android app stores, or Google Play app stores, and it will have that new inventory clerk persona that you've mentioned, Martin. So you'll be able to play around with it based on the standard demo as well. So overall, this is the first persona that we're releasing that's over and above the technician and supervisor personas that you currently get in Asset Manager. And from a strategic point of view, it's a shift away from the component or add-on based approach that we've used in the past. So those were those components that were like crew management, meter management, field operation worker, or user. So it's a shift away from that. So you'll start to get more personas over time. So with the first one, as you mentioned, it's a basic inventory management capability, inbound, outbound deliveries, purchase orders, stock transfers. What it is a lot of that capability used to be historically within Inventory Manager, if you remember that app. But it's been refreshed and brought into Asset Manager. So there's a lot of technical improvements. It utilizes some of the latest cloud services that we have. It's got a better user experience, and you can use that same mobile development kit to build upon it as well. But the main thing, I guess, is when you activate a persona, the user experience on the app changes as well. So it's specifically designed for that role. They get a new homepage or splash page that you see. You get new transactions that you can do. It's totally changes how the look and the feel of the app. So this is the first one over and above the two standard ones that we have. But you'll start to see more of these rolled out over time. So, we're going to have one standard app, Asset Manager, and then you'll have multiple personas that you can adopt. So yeah, they'll all have their own unique look and feel, and the processes within them set up to support that particular persona. I should just also mention, with the inventory clerk persona, it's almost on feature parity with the Inventory Manager app. The only thing it doesn't do just yet is physical inventory counts of a warehouse, but that's planned in the next update as well. Yeah, you'll see that dot point down the bottom there. So yeah, but we'll continue to release more of these over time.
Yeah, no, thanks, Tim. And just, I know we just jumped a couple of slides there, and I just wanted to bring you back as well. Is on the right, we see this one called Field Service Persona, and we'll explore that a little bit, I think, when we get to FSM as well. But did you want to just touch on that briefly as well, Tim?
Yeah, look, I think with field service management and the personas, if you're looking at a mobility solution from SAP, we currently do have two personas and different applications that support that at the moment. So for an end customer, you kind of have that, well, what's the difference between both? So we're looking at ideas to bring them together and make it more consistent with what you can use. So we're trying to get the best of both worlds in there. So there's quite a lot happening in that space. I can't commit to a date for that yet, but there's a lot happening there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's going to be the hot topic, the next one we're going to talk with Simon as well. But just before we do, just the last one, Tim, in here, and we see it on here, I mentioned it on the left, which is the checklist capability. And I know people ask, there's checklist capability in ASPM as well. So can you just briefly talk about what's the difference, and are they both to remain, and what's the use cases and why they're different?
Yeah, so that they'll both remain, but there is different use cases for these two solutions. So the EAM checklist, which is the one that's just coming out. So in the Asset Manager 2010 release, it supports the checklists, but you need to have the latest release of S/4HANA as a backend to make it happen. So it's limited to customers on the 2021, SAP S/4HANA stack to make it happen. So it's kind of similar to how we've used inspection lots and calibration orders in the past from the quality management module. But basically, you go into the back end, you have the ability to define a checklist with questions, answers. They can be qualitative or quantitative. And then you can associate them to work orders, so either corrective work orders, or even associate them to task lists so they can get automatically pushed out as a part of your PM program. But the main thing here is, from an asset manager point of view, you can pull up those checklists, complete them on the mobile device, and you can even trigger off maintenance notifications if there's any results that are, a bit out of the normal. When you've completed the checklist, the results don't get stored back in SAP as a dumb PDF, I'll call it that. It's actually stored against the work order and the equipment. So you can pull this data out for analysis, kind of like what you do for measurement documents and measurement readings at the moment. So you can really analyze the results of these checklists. So, again, pretty much I'd say the use case for that is anywhere you use paper, but to do an inspection, do a risk assessment, you can create a digital checklist out of that and have people complete that on their device. So I guess the question then is, well, what's the difference between that and the ASPM checklists? So that's already out at the moment. A customer would need to have ASPM, so Asset Strategy and Performance Management, as a solution as well, because that's where you define those checklists. From a use case point of view, they're more related to reliability and engineering processes. So you're doing an analysis, and you can then push out checklists to help bring some data back from that. So, really basic example, you've done a criticality analysis for an asset, and then there's a recommendation that a technician does a periodic review of that criticality. So, you can complete that checklist on a device, and then the results go back to ASPM to update your equipment, your health scores, the criticality, all of that stuff. So yeah, different use cases, but yeah, EAM checklists really tied into S/4HANA and your work orders, ASPM, reliability, updating equipment and asset health information.
Yeah, no,
sorry,
thanks.
That wasn't very brief.
Yeah, thanks for being brief on that one. But it's a real game changer in a mobile device, these checklists, because I know, speaking from a Rizing perspective, we've built many an enhancement on forms and Adobe for checklists and for other things as well. So it's great that they are actually now part of the solution. So let's keep moving, and we'll jump into field service management now. And I'll bring Simon in. I know Simon's been almost exclusively working his time on FSM for quite some time. But I'll just quickly talk a little bit about what's new, and then we'll get into the roadmap and the vision as well. So there's some improvements now around plans and optimizing plans. So considering different work patterns and activities for the technicians, and giving you more capability in that space. There's a new API which effectively integrates into third-party applications. So the activities and service calls, it really opens it up to like an entire sort of service marketplace. So that also allows both people that are out there executing the work for you, but also when I talk about a service marketplace, it sort of gives the ability for a customer, or to build a customer application that they could actually be generating the service calls themselves as well. So I think that in itself is a bit of a game changer from field service management. And as I said, there's a lot of investment. It's real heavy investment from SAP in the last 12 months, and then definitely going forward. And you'll see some of that in the roadmap. Lock activities, again, this is around schedule. When the customer's informed, when the technician's informed, when the work's ready to execute, you have the ability now to lock that in the schedule. So, and lock that for the technician. So they're committed to that time and a place. And then lastly on here around reservation. So basically the addition here is for the addition of addresses. So now they have an address. So so when it's not only where it's a reservation type of reserve time, it will have the address, or the user defined address can be used for that reservation location. So they were the few things that came with the 21.11 release. But we'll get into sort of really bringing Simon in now to talk a little bit more detail around some of the vision, some of the roadmap, and sort of where FSM is heading. So I'll pass to you now, Simon, to give us a bit of an update.
Yeah,
I'll
sure.
go to the next slide.
Yeah, no, thank you. So actually, you can see like there's some of the big topics here are were already covered on kind of like the vision and roadmap. Some of these things have also, at least in some places, already been delivered. But maybe I thought I might contextualize for you first of all, really what problem is FSM trying to solve. So what it's not trying to solve is the problem I've got 8 people in my workshop and I need to schedule the work. That's not really what we're thinking about here. We're thinking about work which is distributed, across a certain geography, and trying to solve that one. So some of the things around, so you look at the left-hand side there, optimizer. So when I've got 8 people in my workshop, okay, I mean there's some sort of optimization, but it's not that problematic. But at the moment we start to deal with, I've got lots of work over a wide distributed area over a period of time. It's a different type of problem to solve. So I mean, in the past, we would have looked for something like MRS with the optimizer to do it. But really, this is the solution that we are going forward with, for those customers who have that, geographically dispersed, assets and work. So very much, so the enhancement that we have done around being able to use the GIS information, so be able to use the different layers and be able to view that, has all come through. And very much probably what also is quite important for you guys to understand is that it's our utilities industry business unit that's driving this enhancement of the product. So we really say from SAP we need to have some skin in the game to be able to support our customers with these kinds of scheduling requirements, and also with and then of course once you've scheduled it, then being able to track them. Are they traveling? Are they on site? Are they doing it? And capturing all the information they're out there when they're doing their work. So I think we'll probably touch on a little bit some of the different personas about why this mobile app versus that one a little bit later. But that's really the key thing here is we're really looking at hard about optimizing. And I think the work, whether it be quite small, and so I've got this person, I've got a few jobs, what else can they have? Or I've given them a few jobs, is that the best way of doing it? Or it could be, I've got all this work, hundreds of jobs to be done over the next 3 days by 300 or 400 people, and let's come up with a more optimized way of delivering that work outcome as well. Being able to do all those things, and ultimately too, with adhering to our business rules. So whatever they are, being able to then make sure that whatever the optimization is, it's already allowed for the fact that people can't work more than 15 hours. And if you had worked 15 hours yesterday, then you can't start until you had a 10-hour break and all that sort of good stuff. So that the outcome of the optimizer can be utilized without having to double check it. So you might want to move to the next slide, because we just talk about a couple of those things.
Yeah, let's do that. While we do, I know you're talking about that optimizer there, Simon. It's really around the AI and some of that capability, right? And building on those, what is optimization, and then putting that in the system as well. So I know SAP, and maybe you wanted to mention that around how they're really investing in that concept of AI here as well.
Yeah, look, absolutely. So so we've got the idea, and it's a good prompt. We've got this concept of the plugin, and when you get your standard system, it's got 3 plugins for you. You can, if that suits you, knock yourself out. But typically, we find we're starting to if I'm talking to an electrical distributor, actually we've got some special rules here. So how do we have those special rules? So what we're actually doing with the product as part of your subscription is you get to have your own custom plugin written for you and installed in your tenant. And so what that means is in your implementation, you say, these are my rules. I talked about the you can only work 15 hours and then you have to have your 10-hour break and all that sort of good stuff. So those are the rules. You write them down, we hand them over to the product team and they suss it out and they go, okay, cool. These are the things that we can do and here's your custom plugin. So now when I'm saying, here, do the, work out, Mr. System, what can happen? And it's using all those embedded rules and to come up with an optimized solution, whether I'm trying to optimize a single person's job or, like I said, all of next week's work for everyone.
Yeah, no, those plugins are really important. And that's you want me to press play? This is a bit of a recording.
Yeah, so this is one of them, and some of the stuff that's happened. So of course, one of the things that is important in a utility, and lots of other organisations as well, that we don't have just one person doing the job. We need a team. So we've got some existing team capability. So that was just showing you the team. And then what you see there is where we dispatch the job. So then you can see everyone's working on that job. So once again, that one was done sort of manually, but when you're using the optimization function, of course, it all happens behind the scenes, but it's, of course, magic's just happened and everything looks amazing. You think, well, what happened? So that's really just to touch on that area there. But what's also on the roadmap there and coming in be probably 2202, so it's in February next year, and probably the round off in May, is to make those teams much more dynamic from a cruise point of view. So I need 5 people in the team. They need to have these skills. Let me plan all the work and I'm going to have 4 crews, so I can plan my work out and get that all sorted out. Or in fact, the optimizer can do that for me. But then coming up to, well, we've got these jobs starting tomorrow. Actually, this crew's missing a person. So having some planner alerts to help me with that. And so we can actually manage those situations, so we can really have the best of both worlds, is using the crews, but then also being able to dynamically staff them. So they're very important capabilities, and once again, things that are coming shortly. Cool. So if you want to go to the next one, so that's one thing from a crew perspective, and just once again to give you a feel of what it is. You can just hit play. I talked about the optimization. So that particular person there, they had a bit of work planned, but who knows if that was ideal. And then so we can just run that very narrow optimization. And like I said, using that custom plugin, what are the rules around, and getting that, to look a bit better, in better shape, so that individual is better planned. So that was really the kind of the details of that. And this bit, it's very interesting actually, but maybe not for today. So it's really why did the machine do what it did? So a lot of capability there for people who are interested in further tweaking the optimization and understanding why that happened. They can plenty of reports inside the tool for them to help them understand that. But it's that's not new. It's been there for a long time.
Yeah, no, we'll hand it back to John in the tech. But just before that convergence of FSM and Asset Manager, Simon, and personas. Any last comments on that?
Yeah, so there's plenty of use cases for FSM outside of asset management. So really, and one of the requirements around Asset Manager is you have to have an ERP or an S4 backend. But we've got plenty of use cases for this scheduling capability where that's not the case. So the mobile app you get with FSM is actually included in the license subscription. And it works directly off there, and you could be running any backend. I mean, the job tickets could be coming from a CRM system. There's no requirement that it come through from a core backend system. So, but honestly, there's horses for courses, and it depends what you're doing.
Yeah.
If you're doing scheduling, it might make a lot of sense to just use the FSM mobile app, because we can still get a lot of value out of it. But if you're not going to do any scheduling, or we're alternatively served for scheduling, or then obviously Asset Manager with its tight integration around the assets and the work in your core system, then that's a good use case for that one.
Yeah, no, thanks. As you said, horses for courses. So no, thanks, Simon. And hopefully now. I'll pass it back to you, John, to round us out with asset performance management.
Fantastic. Thanks, Martin. Yeah, so we've kind of combined, the topics around predictive asset insights and asset strategy and performance management together here under this banner of asset performance management. Increasingly, this is the way that that SAP is thinking about this. But we have updates in both solutions. So on the predictive asset insights, increased the integration and the embedding of analytics cloud capability into the solution, and actually delivering that capability without needing an analytics cloud license. Improved functionality around the monitoring and ordering of linear assets. So bringing that information in as well. Improving the alert capability around how we notify people, and always with all of these solutions, where we're looking at large volumes of equipment, always looking at the performance that so that actually the solutions can support very large volumes. So the vision here, there's a lot of integration that was kind of missing in some of the early releases. So we had measuring points in ERP, we had indicators in predictive maintenance, and now in predictive asset insights, but those two aren't linked together. And so we want to harmonize that, link that to back together, include the ability to more easily calculate additional indicators. So use maybe multiple inputs and other formulas to be able to derive and calculate indicator values, and then of course aggregate those across your whole hierarchy as well. So all of that really is driving into this overarching strategy that I mentioned, really, which is to harmonize the asset data and the transactional data between our core ERP and the predictive asset insight solution as well. And we see this also in the asset strategy performance management space as well. So that same overarching strategy exists here, but we do have, again, some specific enhancements in the ASPM solution. So, for example, being able to copy existing RCM assessments, so reliability-centered maintenance assessments, in order to start a new assessment, but with essentially pre-filled with information as per the previous one. Being able to manage standalone recommendations, so you don't have to do an assessment now in order to get through to the recommendation. You can actually just start a recommendation standalone. And we've actually seen this as an opportunity to even integrate third-party solutions that are being used in the strategy development process. So you might use those and then take the output of those and bring that in as a recommendation into asset strategy and performance management. So we removed, so Martin and Tim talked a little bit about the checklist functionality. So there's some limitations that have been removed there, but also we're keeping an eye on that enterprise asset management checklist that's available in S4 as well. So Tim kind of explained the difference between those. So we're going to see more in this space around our integration with Analytics Cloud as well, and really looking at that harmonized data model. And I mean, Tim, I might bring you back in. I mean, this topic of kind of unifying enterprise asset management and asset performance management to really, I guess, to realize this goal of closed loop process, the true intelligent asset management that SAP has been focused on for the last few years. I mean, there's some real challenges, right, in doing this. We had slightly different data models in Asset Central than we had inside S/4HANA. I mean, do you want to comment, I guess, around the vision here and what SAP is doing in this space to really to harmonize and bring these two things together?
Yeah, no problem, John. Yeah, I've unmuted. Yeah, look, the fact of the matter is you can argue and say that, you know, a feedback loop does exist with the products today. You know, if you do use those, you know, cloud-based applications like ASPM, you know, you can create recommendations that flow into S4, but to be honest, it's not as optimal as it should be or seamless, you know, from a process and data point of view. And you know, the biggest one, and you've kind of alluded to it as well, and it's apparent for anyone that sets up ASPM, is that, you know, it's running on a slightly different data model to S4HANA, which, you know, had good intentions at the very beginning, but you know, it's led to a lot of data synchronization issues, you know, not just when you're setting it up, but also just ongoing as well. So, you know, going forward with this combined solution, it's going to be quite different, and for the better in my mind. So we're focusing on having that standardized data model. So it doesn't matter what product you use, either a cloud product from SAP or S4HANA or ECC, it's going to have the same data model, the same objects and the same fields, etc. So it'll be very consistent no matter what you're using. But with the simplification of that data, then you've got, you know, the opportunity, we'll have these new and improved processes around that whole feedback loop that you're seeing there. So it'll make things simpler with that data harmonization. Probably too many things to talk about here, but just from a couple of pointers, you know, for example, when you're analyzing those maintenance strategies, you'll have, you know, better analytical tools to see, you know, what the impact of your recommendations have been. So, for example, imagine you've got a maintenance plan that's running every 6 months, and you make a recommendation to push it out to a yearly frequency. You'll be able to, you know, overlay when you made that recommendation, and then see the results of the recommendation that's coming back from your asset management system. So, you know, based on my sensor data or based on my amount of work orders and corrective orders, you know, was that strategy change effective, or do I need to make further changes? So you'll start to see a lot more, and that was just on the analysis side, but every part of that closed loop process, you'll start to see a lot better integration that will come through in further releases.
I mean, that analytics topic is probably quite a nice sort of segue, and maybe Simon might invite you to talk here. I mean, it's a little bit of a busy diagram, but we're really representing here, I guess, the evolution of the analytical capability that we've had inside, you know, initially predictive maintenance back in the 2019 releases, through into predictive asset insights, you know, last year, through to, you know, the standard live analytics that we now have available since the August release of predictive asset insights. I know, you know, analytics, you know, Simon, you're a firm believer in using the power of analytics and you know, taking the data that you have. I mean, this transition from offline analytics to custom live to standard live, I mean, what does this really mean, you know, in terms of, you know, what you can get out of these solutions?
So thanks, John. Yeah, so yeah, well, by the way, there's a test after this, and so you'll need to know a lot of detail about this slide to get through. So please pay lots of attention, or I might be joking about that. So the key thing about what I think the value is here is, so one of the things that we've been doing for a while is to say, well, we don't need any more analytic tools just for maintenance, and particularly around what we're doing in our predictive asset insights. So we've got a good tool that does that. So that's Analytics Cloud. So we want to make that available, and so that's been available inside both ASPM and AIN, and actually PAI as well. So to have, you know, you can have those dashboards sitting in the equipment record, or sitting even as separate dashboards which you've exposed. But one of the things that was not quite there was the fact that all the data was not necessarily available in that in a virtual manner from Predictive Asset Insights into the Analytics Cloud. So what it meant was we'd have to transfer some data and have a proper HANA data table to Point Analytics Cloud so we could do that. But what's changed is like there's a lot less to do. So the fact that now we have data inside Predictive Asset Insight, so you just think about all the dimensionality we have around. We know everything about the asset, all the different asset types and models and classes and attributes and all that sort of stuff, and locations and so on and so on. We've got that, plus the information that we have, that we're capturing, through all the different IoT streams, wherever they're coming from. And as a user, if I decide that well, first of all, I'm authorized, but I decide that I want to actually create some more operational dashboards, then I've got that completely in my power. So just using the standard tools that I have inside Analytics Cloud. So, okay, well, I want to know stuff about equipment, and I want to know stuff about locations, and I know we already know how those things are joined. Now I've got a little report and I can count that, see some stuff there, and now I can add that, what's the latest condition, or in fact, maybe I want to trend overall condition for this asset class, or maybe group it by area or something like that. So once again, the ability to do that as a user in not too much longer than the time it took me to describe that to you. So I think it provides a really powerful opportunity for people to leverage the information they've already got. We've just made it easier to get out, and you can do something with it. And you don't have to be a data architect to do it.
I guess the great thing here is, you can use the data where it sits, right? You don't have to replicate all that data across into a new data store and set all of that up. You can actually point your Analytics Cloud, to where Predictive Asset Insights is sitting, and use that, and immediately start creating stories and views on that data. And so that, gives you a lot more flexibility, and makes, like you say, lets you do it much more quickly, and lets, effectively business users able to start creating those views.
And certainly, if you find that interesting, then I do encourage you to take a look at the global meeting, because the product manager for PAI, he does a short demo of kind of how that looks like. So you get an idea of the process of really what's involved, and there's plenty of reliability engineers out there who will be able to look at the kind of tools that are being used, and they can imagine themselves using it.
Yeah, it's a good point. In that recording from last week, there is a lot more detail. And as you mentioned, Simon Lee, who's the Global Solution Manager for Predictive Asset Insights, actually jumped into Analytics Cloud and started creating a story and showing how that gets set up. So in all of these areas, there is a bit more detail in that global recording. So feel free to jump into that. So Martin, we're a few minutes. We've kind of kept to time. We've got a few minutes before the end of the session. We've got all of us here in the room. I guess, are there any questions? Anything in the chat that that we want to pick up and comment on?
Yeah, while people are thinking about that, just in chat, there's been a fair bit around Asset Manager and some of the capabilities around the multi sign-on and the forms. So everyone wants to see some of the forms, and there are some recordings out there, I know, that we've sat on, or you've led, John, as well. So there are some them out there, and absolutely would be more than happy to show some of those at another time. And Tim did mention, Vicky, thanks for asking all those questions and keeping us on our toes there. Really appreciate that. Tim's going to get back to you on that with around the multi-user use case in Asset Manager as well. So,
but one comment I might make on the EAM inspection checklist. So so Tim mentioned, hey, that's new functionality into Asset Manager. It's also new functionality into S4. Now that's true, right? So it's delivered standard in S/4HANA 2021, the release that just came out in October, last month. But actually that solution did exist before, but it was a consulting solution from SAP. And it's actually existed for many, many years as a consulting solution. And what they've done in the S/4HANA 2021 release is effectively standardized that consulting solution. So it's now delivered with the standard S/4HANA. But for customers who are on earlier releases, including ECC, that consulting solution is still available. So you don't necessarily have to wait until you get to S/4HANA 2021 if you want to take advantage. Now, it is a consulting solution, so there is it's not standard in the sense that the delivery there's a little bit of services work that comes with that. But there are options there. So if you are interested in that, you can reach out and we can connect you with our SAP services colleagues. And like I say, that's for earlier versions of S4 or for ECC as well.
Yeah, no, good one. Any questions? Anyone want to come off mute?
So there was a question in the chat there, Martin, from James about the digital capture. So, I might want to just point out, it's actually a really interesting topic, and it's actually pretty close to my heart too. But there's apart from the checklist capability that comes, that we've described with Asset Manager, there's also other approaches as well. So certainly within Asset Manager, so both Rizing have a capability for integrating really what is a dynamic smart form. And SAP, we've got an approach for that as well. So that within Asset Manager, you're really using that form to dynamically, as you ask the question, it asks you a question or you enter some information and it says, oh, okay, because you answered that, then I need to send you down that path. But make sure you capture all that information. And so that's using a more generic forms building type capability. And so I guess that from that side, that's there, and that same kind of capability comes standard in the FSM mobile app as well. So they're very much that the guided electronic form for capturing any type of information. Oh, actually, I can see someone's had a car crash and damaged my power pole. I need to fill out this form because the repair costs we can claim on our insurer or something like that. So all those kinds of scenarios do come up, even though it's not standard capability in Asset Manager today. There's plenty of both Rizing and SAP. We've got ways of solving that problem for you.
Yeah, no, thanks, Simon. And it's a good point around the forms in FSM as well. So I'm glad you brought that one up as well, because we're just talking about ASPM and Asset Manager.
Yeah. So there's this, and probably, maybe to, that comes back to the use case discussion as well. Like, well, what if I do this and what if I do that? So some of the ways is sometimes if we only had one checklist, then actually would be a good thing, because then it would be not confusing, but then all you have to do is buy this other product because all you want to use out of it is one little bit. So absolutely that's a problem for people where we just want to use the stuff we want to use. I don't want to pay for that. I don't want to pay for what we need to use. So ultimately that's kind of why the situation is there's more than one way of skinning that cat. So I think that's actually, in the end it's a good thing, because not everyone wants to do it in a monolithic way.
No, ultimately we expect that kind of ability to support different types of checklists, some of which come from SAP and maybe even third-party checklist solutions as well. That's very much aligned with the Asset Manager strategy, right? That we keep the platform open. We have a number of different options of ways that we can plug checklists in, some of which are standard out of the box, and some of which may require some project work, if they're coming from a third party. But you have choice and you have flexibility, and with that comes obviously a little bit of, oh well, okay, what's the right thing to use for what purpose? But it means that you can put the right solution in the hands of your users.
Yeah, absolutely. We are about at time. Just a couple of things to close out. This is something there's the global session, as we know, that's 2 a.m. or 4 a.m. That most of us don't get up for. Hopefully this allowed us to give us a bit of local flavour. So hopefully you can appreciate that, and some familiar faces here as well. We will send out a short survey because we do want to do this, or we think there's value in doing this twice a year after the same session that comes out globally. So if you can answer those couple of questions on whether you think it's valuable, who is the most valuable player today, those types of things, and then we will consolidate that, and we'll look to do this again the next time. So thank you all for listening. Thanks to the panel. Any last parting words, John?
No, look, I think saving everyone from having to get up at 1, 2 in the morning, or having to watch the full replay, get the highlights here, a bit of commentary. It's been fun, and I hope everyone's enjoyed it, and we get a chance to do it again.
Excellent. All right, thanks all. We'll talk soon.